The morning Ruth was left behind, the sky over rural Ohio looked calm and forgiving, which made what happened feel even colder. A packed car disappeared down the gravel road, dust lifting like a curtain, and a young woman stood alone on the porch of a house that had never truly been hers. She had been told this abandonment was for her own good, a lesson meant to harden her, but the silence that followed felt more like a sentence than a lesson. In that stillness, Ruth realized that love, when it is conditional, can vanish faster than hope, and that the world can turn its back with frightening ease. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of doing the right thing when no one is watching, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Stories like this matter because they remind us who we can choose to be. Ruth had grown up in a tight-knit church community in Indiana, where expectations were heavy, and compassion often came with rules. When her life didn't follow the path her family approved of, they decided distance would correct her. She was sent away under the guise of reflection and responsibility, but the message was clear enough when they stopped answering her calls. With a single suitcase and a savings account that drained quickly, Ruth drifted between short-term jobs and borrowed couches until even favors ran out. Pride kept her from asking for help again, and shame kept her from returning home. She learned to be invisible, to smile when spoken to, and to accept less than she deserved because it felt safer than rejection. 2 states away, in a small Michigan town shaped by lakes and long winters, Nathan Walker lived a life built around routine and responsibility. Widowed young, he raised his son Caleb alone, balancing shifts at a local manufacturing plant with school drop-offs and late-night homework. Nathan was not a man of grand gestures. He believed in showing up, in steady effort, in doing what needed to be done even when it hurt. His house was modest, his life predictable, and his heart guarded by the quiet grief of loss. Yet beneath that reserve lived a kindness shaped by experience, the kind that understood pain without needing explanations. Ruth met Nathan by accident on a gray afternoon when the diner she cleaned after hours needed help during lunch rush. She worked fast, kept her head down, and did not expect to be noticed. Nathan noticed anyway, not because she stood out, but because she looked like someone carrying too much alone. Over the following weeks, their paths crossed in small, ordinary ways. Ruth watched Caleb after school in exchange for a few dollars and warm meals. Nathan repaired a broken step on the apartment building where Ruth rented a room. Nothing about their connection was dramatic, but it was steady, and for Ruth, that steadiness felt unfamiliar and oddly comforting. Life, however, does not soften simply because hope appears. Ruth's family resurfaced when they learned she had found stability elsewhere. Their messages carried a tone of judgment masked as concern, reminders of expectations she had failed to meet, and the insistence that distance had been necessary. They wanted proof that their lesson had worked. Ruth felt the old ache return, the urge to prove herself worthy, even as she sensed the trap closing again. The weight of their approval pressed on her chest, threatening to undo the fragile confidence she had begun to build. Nathan saw the change before Ruth spoke of it. He noticed the way her shoulders tensed, the way her laughter faded, the way she worked harder as if exhaustion could erase doubt. As a single father, he understood the cost of conditional love and the damage it leaves behind. He had seen it in friends who chased approval until nothing of themselves remained. Nathan believed that love, to mean anything, had to be freely given and fiercely protective, especially when the world decided to be cruel. When Ruth's family arrived unannounced, the air seemed to tighten. They came with polite smiles and heavy words, measuring her progress, questioning her choices, and implying that gratitude required obedience. They spoke of forgiveness as something to be earned and framed abandonment as discipline. Ruth stood small under their gaze, old habits pulling her inward, ready to accept blame if it meant belonging again. Nathan did not raise his voice. He did not shame or threaten. His response was quiet, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. He spoke of the nights Ruth stayed late to help his son with schoolwork, of the mornings she showed up early despite exhaustion, of the dignity she carried even when she thought no one saw. He made it clear that in his home, care was not a bargaining chip, and presence was not a reward withheld to control behavior. He explained that family was not defined by who leaves to make a point, but by who stays when leaving would be easier. The room changed. The lesson Ruth's family intended to teach reflected back at them, stripped of justification. They were forced to confront the truth that distance had not strengthened her, kindness had. Control had not built character, compassion had. Their authority faltered in the face of a man who expected nothing in return for doing what was right. Ruth felt something loosen inside her. A knot she had carried for years finally easing. For the first time, she understood that her worth did not rise and fall with approval. She saw that the family she had been chasing was not the only definition of belonging. In that moment, standing beside a single father who had chosen decency over dominance, Ruth chose herself. Time moved forward, as it always does, but not without leaving marks. Ruth found steady work at a community center, mentoring young women who reminded her of her past self. She learned to set boundaries, to say no without apology, and to build a life rooted in respect. Nathan continued to raise Caleb with the same quiet devotion, teaching him by example that strength could be gentle and leadership could be kind. Their lives remained connected, not by obligation, but by shared values and mutual respect. The shock Nathan delivered that day rippled outward. Ruth's family, faced with the consequences of their choices, had to decide whether pride or reconciliation mattered more. Some relationships healed slowly, others remained distant. Ruth no longer measured her peace by their response. She had learned that growth does not require punishment, and love does not need to be proven through pain. If this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you of the power one person has to change another's life simply by choosing kindness, please take a moment to like, share, and engage with this video. Your support helps stories like this reach those who need them most. Just before we end, we have a special request for you. Comment below with a single word that describes what this story made you feel, because your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. In the end, Ruth's story was not about abandonment, but about answer. A quiet answer given by a single dad who understood that lessons taught through love last longer than those taught through loss. In a world quick to walk away, he chose to stand firm, and in doing so, he helped a young woman learn the most important truth of all, that she was never the problem, and she was always worthy of staying for.